Welcome to Podcast 83, a regular look at the news, stories, and trends related to Michigan's 83 counties from the Michigan Association of Counties.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Podcast 83, the podcast put on by the Michigan Association of Counties. This week, we are joined by, of course, Samantha Gibson from our Government Affairs team and Amy Dolinky, who is our technical advisor on the opioid settlement funds. Amy has been with us just over a year or so now, Amy, right? Working on the opioid settlement dollars. Is that right?
Yep, just a little over a year.
Yeah, so Amy's been doing a great job with that. So why don't we start there, Amy? Let's talk where we've been, where we've gone over the past year with these opioid settlement dollars, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit about where we think we'll be going in the next year.
Yeah, so when my position started, no local governments had received any funds yet, but most folks had signed on to at least a few of the settlements. And then local governments started receiving their funds January 31st from two of the major settlements. But in that time frame leading up to when counties started receiving funds, we really worked to try to create some process documents and tools to help local governments through their spending, whether that was planning for creation of an advisory panel or a steering committee, all the way to helping folks think through what transparency will look like with their spending and activities. And so once folks started receiving that money, we had numerous counties engage in technical assistance with our services, and we were able to provide everything from administrative support all the way through working with some counties on strategic planning efforts to really address even beyond the opioid settlements to the broader drug overdose crisis. And so as we've moved through this, we saw most of folks requesting support immediately after receiving funds, but at this point are engaged with 60 counties providing various levels of support and have created numerous other tools and documents to help them.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that and some of the resources we have available now. Of course, on our website, there's our Opioid Settlement Resource Center, which has a lot of good data and information folks can look up, kind of see how much money's been distributed by the companies, where some of the funds are being used. Also, who's engaging with us on some of these with these funds. What else? What other tools are on there?
So we also have templates that can be customized by each county for their own purposes. So there's a spending plan template, RFP template, additional documents that help with transparency around their process for the public. We also have our Opioid Settlement Resource Center and a link to sign up for our local government learning community where folks can really learn about what's happening across the state.
Yeah, so as you're engaging with counties and groups across the state, what are you finding has been the most useful? What are folks, what's sort of some of the data that folks are really looking for at this point?
We do have a lot of folks that have already created their steering committee or advisory panel, and some counties are just starting to put that in place. We're seeing a big need for increased engagement of individuals with lived experience with substance use and family members who have been impacted by substance use as well. And then we're starting to see a bit more of the RFP development. Folks are starting to get ready to move some of those funds into their community.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the funds and the funding and when it's coming and how long it's going to fund. Can you speak to that a little bit?
So each settlement with each company has really a different time frame on maximum number of payments. So those companies are not functioning on the standard fiscal year that we're functioning on, but they will be having a specific number of payments to each community. So we have everything from one maximum payment all the way to 18. And so we kind of make that into a payment per year. So over that 18-year period, we'll see all those funds come in at this point. There are some settlements that are still outstanding that may have different timeframes, but we really expect them to be within that 18-year timeframe. The other struggle with these funds is they may not come in on an annual basis, and when those funds do come in, the amount of money will differ from year to year.
So let's talk about the funds a little more. How are those funds, the distribution determined? That was done through a judge, correct?
So we did have a group of, for the national settlements, we have a group of attorneys across the country that worked with those companies as well to be able to figure out that distribution process. So from the county level, those funds will be received directly from Brown Greer, the national administrator. So local funds are not going to flow through the state in any capacity. They will flow directly from Brown Greer, where those companies are really kind of pooling that money or sending that money for distribution.
Great. And then so now we have funds starting to flow in. As you said, some are going to be annual, some are going to be one time, some are going to be over 18 years. How are you advising folks to deal with that kind of variability and uncertainty in the funding? Because obviously everyone wants these dollars to go as far as possible to help their communities. But with that uncertainty, what are some of your suggestions to deal with that?
So most of the counties that I'm working with have taken their estimated total amount of funds for all of the settlements that they're anticipating, and they're dividing that number by 18 to create an average annual amount that they're comfortable spending. Some communities are taking a total from one settlement out and kind of keeping that as a buffer in case funds don't come in by the time that they need them. But really asking folks to think about sustainability, to think through how to make these funds last as long as we can. There is no time frame on when folks have to start spending or have to stop spending. But we know that with the amounts that are received by the counties, this will not really address the problem as a whole. It's only going to be able to supplement other efforts.
And then talk a little bit about collaboration that you're seeing, maybe at between counties, between nonprofits and counties, or other local units of government working together. What are you seeing out there as far as collaboration goes?
So we are seeing some counties that are trying to look at what it would take to pool funds to create more regional approaches and strategies for the use of these funds. I'm not seeing as much of the collaboration with the townships and municipalities, but there's a lot of folks talking about that and looking into that at this point. But I think we're still in the early stages there. I do think that the partnerships with community-based organizations, local nonprofits, treatment providers, other providers in this space, that's really where we're seeing the most collaboration, is through these advisory panels and steering committees, making sure those local experts are at the table and being able to work together to create a plan and identify the real priorities and gaps in services. We also have some counties that are working with their local community foundation to assist with more of the administrative support for rolling out an RFP and scoring of those proposals.
And then where do you see things, in the next, let's say, year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, as far as, programming and what you're seeing counties do and plan for in the future?
It's really across the board. I'm seeing a lot of focus in some of the recovery spaces in terms of activities to fund, a lot of focus on prevention activities to really try to get to the root causes of how we got here in the first place. I do think that there will be a lot more work taking place with county jails in the future as well. Some areas of need that I'm seeing across the board relate to transportation and relate to really access to care and the transitions from care. So someone going from residential or inpatient to outpatient to those community-based providers. And so I think across the board, it's going to hopefully be able to, what we'll see is a creation or expansion of the continuum of care. So hoping that folks are able to get from those prevention activities all the way to those recovery activities with very small transition. But I do think that we are going to see a lot of leveraging of other funding sources, federal funds, and others, to try to supplement those larger gaps that these dollars can address.
Right. And for long-term sustainability too, I'm sure, as these funds, as we start to move away from these funds, we obviously want to make sure that programming is around as much as possible. But if funds aren't there, we're going to have to find other areas to fund it. Now, as you're looking at, Michigan, we've talked a lot about Michigan. How do Michigan counties, you think, rank, how are they doing versus national, other states, counties in other states? Are we kind of ahead of the curve, you think, or are we right in the middle of it? What do you think?
I think when we're looking at what resources are available to local governments, what we see in Michigan is a lot more being available. So whether that's the supports through MAC or other technical assistance providers, we do see that there's more resources here for local governments. And we see other states really turning to Michigan to see that. But I do think that I don't know that we have so much of a ranking system. I think even within our own state, we're seeing folks that have already started spending funds a year ago, and we have folks that are just beginning to create an advisory panel or steering committee right now. And so I think even internally within Michigan, we're not all at the same place. And hopefully we'll be able to capture more of that to be able to share on our dashboard as well.
Yeah, I think we see that a lot with different issues, different people move at different speeds and have different resources available locally to kind of take advantage of those. That's why it's been great having Amy as part of our team here to help counties out across the state with these dollars and just be a sounding board, if nothing else. So I encourage folks to reach out to us, reach out to Amy specifically. Her contact information's on our website. Go to our opioid settlement page, check out some of the data there. With that, Amy, is there anything else I missed that you wanted to touch on?
No, I don't think so. I'm just really excited to see how many counties have engaged with us for this support and to be able to really get an understanding of the way that this looks different in every single county based on their specific needs and capacity. So just excited to see how this all plays out. I think this is really a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Well, great. Well, thanks for your time today, Amy. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Podcast 83.